Hey, everybody, and welcome to this month's episode of Financial Transformation Live. And it's an exciting one. It's the first one after we won the award for Training Event of the Year at the Digital Finance Awards run by the team at Gen CFO. So firstly, a massive thank you to whoever nominated us for those awards. It was such an amazing surprise to be nominated in the first place and to have won it, of course. And it's lovely being part of the Gen CFO crew. So thank you so much to those guys. So today's session is all about basically driving a faster close. So what is the process that you can go through with your team and how you do it? Now, I have actually entitled this presentation 12 months to a faster close, right? But I'm going to talk to you about 12 months may not be the pace that you work at. And we'll talk a little bit about that as we go through. But firstly, obviously, we are live. So if anyone is listening to this live, then please do say hello. Or give us a little wave in the chat. It's always great to hear from our live attendees. And as usual, one of the reasons we do this live is so that people can engage and ask questions, share experiences, and start to build that community that we all want in terms of sharing best practice, etc. So I'm going to quickly let me just put my presentation up on the slide. So 12 months. So again, really quick intro. For those of you that don't know me, my name is Hannah Munro. I've been working in implementing and transforming finance teams for, well, probably longer than I want to admit to right now, but that's me feeling my age. More than anything else. So I also host this event and the CFO podcast. So please do check it out if you want. Now, I have had a few comments about some issues with audio. So bear with me. We are going to just tweak the settings, perhaps try that in a lower quality of broadcast. So let's just see if that helps the conversation. And we're going to give it a few minutes to catch up. If you're having any issues with audio, etc., please do pop it in the comments. Let us know if you can hear us. That would also be lovely to hear from you as well. So, okay, let's go through the slides. We'll see how we go. And if we need to, we'll pause. So the next session, for those of you that are regular subscribers, you know we do these every month. I took a month off for a holiday, but we do this every month. The next session, for those that are interested, is on designing your finance systems architecture. So I think that's going to be a session all about how do we design the overall landscape that we're working on, and how do we manage the transition from landscape to landscape. Again, I'm not going to give you any spoilers at this stage, but if you are either looking at evaluating your system architecture, if you need to take a step back and think about what systems you're using and how you're using them, this might be an interesting first step. So again, please do that. Please join us. I will get Soph, my fabulous producer of Financial Transformation Live, to pop the links in the chat where you can sign up and get early registration. And of course, for those of you that are long-time subscribers and are on the email alerts, you will get that into your inbox. And again, if you're not and you want to be, we'll pop those links in the live chat and also in the show notes on the podcast. So please do check those out. And Soph's on it. She is sharing those live. So, and again, please do reach out if you have any ideas for future sessions. Okay, so why month-end close? And I spend a lot of time talking to people about the month-end close, right? And I think we as finance individuals, as people working in finance, our life revolves around the month-end close. But I think sometimes what gets missed is the importance of making it more automated, of making it close faster. So 93% of participants in the 2022 close the book survey basically said they're under pressure to close the books faster. The businesses we're working with, they want more information, they want it faster. And I think, and I talked about this on the podcast, literally in the latest session that's coming up with Alana, but we talked about the concept of shadow finance. And if we do not speed up the process by which we deliver information to the wider business, then they will create their own ways of finding information. And then you spend all of your time trying to balance the two, rather than actually, if we can resolve that by being the first to offer the information, as you know, we can have confidence that it's correct, and we can be those true stewards of the business direction. So I think for me, it's about the business wants more information, and if we don't step up and make our month end close faster and produce information in a more timely manner, then the reality is that business is going to try and get that information somewhere else. And that's one of the reasons I'm such a big proponent of flash reporting. Now, you guys may remember our previous session on flash reporting about how you get that up and running. If you haven't checked it out, please do. For me, that's a step, is like one of the components of trying to bridge the gap between month-end close and business reporting requirements. So that's well worth having a look at. And also, it's a really good step into the continuous close as well. So, 93% said that they're under pressure to close books faster. 60% said that they would spend more time on analyzing the information and getting insights and trends if that close was more isolated. So it's not just about serving the business better and speeding up the month-end close. That is all about freeing up capacity to then focus on the value add that finance can bring. Because the reality is that even if you produce a brilliant B&L, your executive team may not understand it, and they may not tell you they understand it. And what's really interesting is the importance of spending time in the wider business, educating the consumers and of that information on the contents. So for me, it's not just about analyzing it. It's also about how we communicate and how we educate the wider business and make sure they understand the numbers that we're putting out. Anyway, not going to get distracted. So we've talked a little bit about the importance and the why behind we need to speeding up the month-end close. And what was really interesting in the study is that larger companies who are automating a lot more than smaller companies, right? Huge amounts more than smaller companies. So I think, and you can see the stats there. So my piece is about how do we, as small to medium-sized businesses, get ourselves to a point where we can automate to the same level that those larger companies are, and lean into technology to drive this faster close. So I'm going to talk you through a methodology and a framework that you can approach with your team, and we're going to talk about how we change this. So the reason I put the title of this presentation to be 12 months of fast close is that the reality is that as small teams, and I use small contextually. So what I'm talking about is, you may not be a team of 45 to 50 people. You may be a small team of 2, 3, maybe even just the solo, or you may be a team of 10 to 12, and you've got to deal with this across the organization. So I'm talking in the small to medium, but when you're in that smaller team, and small is relative, as we said, it can be hard to balance business as usual versus moving the needle, so moving things forwards. And that's why I like this concept of a scales, right? Because if we just do what we've always done and the way we've always done it, we're not only just staying where we are, we're actually going backwards, because other businesses and other things will happen in the business that basically means that we're way behind the curve. So what we need to do is find ways to, as we are doing our business as usual, create capacity for this faster month-end close. And I'm going to give you some thoughts. And as usual, I give you my aim is to inspire, to educate, and to give advice. But every business is different and your team is different. So take it, use it, and apply the knowledge, and in a way that works for your business. So the piece to think about is, how do I free up time? How do I create enough momentum that I'm continuously building capacity for improvements and change, rather than just every month we just didn't have time to do anything else different. You've got to find a way to break that cycle and create capacity for change. Now, there are 2 approaches to improving your month end and getting your month end closed down, right? So there is the whole, we're going to do this gradually and consistently over a period of time, or we are going to find the resource, whether that's bringing people in, and we're going to accelerate our change. Now, I, in this presentation, are very much talking about slow and steady. How do you do this alongside your existing month end close process? But there is absolutely no reason you can't accelerate this. And rather than 12 months can become 12 weeks, right? And you need to find the pace that works for your your current team. So in terms of capacity, in terms of, wider business expectations, and also the technology and the piece that you've got to go through. So you can take the framework that I'm going to give you today and you can condense it, you can expand it depending on where you are at. And it's not, as long as you get to the finish and you get to that new month end close and you're clear with your wider organization, set those expectations, then, for me, there's no perfect way to do this, and there's no perfect time frame to do this over. Okay, but it's about consistency and about creating momentum. Okay, so I'm going to take you through the 12 months, right? Each month, I'm going to pick a task to do as part of improving your month end close. And again, like I said, you can take these tasks and you can squeeze them into 12 weeks, or you can do it as I've set out, which is one per month. So first task is implementing a month end close checklist. Now, some people listening to this maybe go, of course, like why, we've already got that, right? But you would be amazed at how many people haven't got a month end close checklist and how many people don't set targets around each activity on the month end close checklist. And so what I want you to go back to your list of tasks, right? I want to make sure that one, you've got all of your tasks, all of the elements that make up your month end documented out, that you've got clear assignments. So who is responsible for that particular task, who takes ownership and accountability, because we all know that's a key driver of success with these kind of pieces. And I want you to set a target day for each task. When should it be completed based on your current month-end close timeframe, right? And I say that initially. And then as you go through each month end, I want you to then state the actual. So if you look at my screenshot, and in fact, I might see if I can make this a bit broader for everybody. There we go. I'm a lot smaller, much better. And the presentation's a lot bigger. So as you can see, I've got different color codes. So on my first item, my close in the purchase ledger, my target day is day one. I closed it on day one. My second one, which was my close my sales ledger, that was actually day two by the time that closed. That's late. Yeah. So I've color coded. So my yellows are late. My greens are obviously on time. My purples are early. Okay, because ITAS, we like to under promise and over deliver. So that's the purple. But I actually saw a cracking checklist when I was working with a recent organization, and they've actually got they actually have a summary using Excel. There's a formula they've used to look up the colors and calculate how many they've got that are obviously early, late, and on time. So I'd also suggest that people do that, and I might see if I can add that into mine because I really liked that piece. But and this is one of the fun things, right? We're all a community. It's all about sharing best practice, what's working for us and how we've done it. So the first thing is just to get a real sense of how are you performing in your month-end close? Are you clear on the tasks that make up your month-end close, who's responsible for them and when they're expected to be completed? And then are you monitoring of those tasks, how many are late, how many are early, and how many are on time? That's the first piece, okay? So that's month one. So the month end one is just get that checklist in. Let's start tracking. And then month end two is all about implementing the assessment. Okay, so this is again one of the key things. You may already do this, but sometimes I come into these conversations and people don't have this in place already. So implementing a pre-month end review meeting. So understanding. So what did we discuss about things that were going to come up this month? Any risks, any challenges. Any things we need to consider, and again, those things we learned from last month, or, what are we going to do differently this month? So that's the pre-meeting. And then the post-meeting is that analysis. So what went well, celebrate as a team. We talk about recognizing success as being a key part of driving change. What went well, what caused delays, and how do we prevent it in future? So it's not just about making your month-end close faster, it's also about making it more consistent, because consistency is absolutely key when it comes to reporting. Your wider business needs to know on that day it goes out. So how do we create more consistency as well as delivering on the times that the target close? And what one thing are we going to do next month to make it better, right? And I'm not sure if anyone's looked into or heard about how the cyclists did in Tour de France, and they did this massive piece around the 1%. How to make everything 1% better, and I use that philosophy a lot when I'm doing these kind of projects. But change one thing a month, that's 12 things over the course of 12 months. And you can go even further. One person takes one thing a month. If every one person takes one thing a month and they do it slightly differently, slightly better, you will incrementally improve. So there is massive power in both, one, small changes and an ongoing basis, but two, a focused attention on one thing for that particular month, just getting it done. Also start thinking about, like, how do we know next month is better? Like, what's the measures of success that we're going for? What we're trying to push forwards? How are we going to do it? And of course, it's really important to take out risks. So I talked about consistency, but sitting down each month with you, as a team, and going, like, what is happening in the business that could impact what's happening with suppliers, with customers, with our payroll, and that could impact our close, and how are we going to mitigate that risk? How are we going to make sure that, again, we're building that consistency and quality around our month end? Okay, so, and then we are on, find one thing to change. Okay, so it's amazing how success leads to more success. So, and I always say this, you've got to start the snowball rolling down a hill. And those who have listened to me before would know I love this analogy. But if you start a snowball rolling down the top of the mountain, it becomes a massive snowball by the time you get to the end. And I think of a lot of transformation projects like that. So you need to find something to kickstart your financial transformation efforts. It needs to be easily achievable. It needs to have an immediate impact on your close time or consistency. And it kind of starts the energy in your month-end improvement process, right? Don't pick something massive that's going to take 3 months to do. Pick something small but impactful. So that could just be, setting up an ODBC link to export your TBs. You might in the next 3 to 6 months be implementing, dashboard-based reporting, which is amazing. But if you can free up capacity by in month 3, technically, in month 3, getting your TBs connected via an ODBC link, do it, right? Because it just starts the momentum, it starts the ball rolling, it starts the change, and it gets buy-in. And once you get buy-in, then you're cooking on gas, and that's what we want. So find that one thing to change. And then in the next month, I want you to really sit down and go, like, where do we want to be? What is our goals? And this will differ, okay? You can be as ambitious as you like, but set an initial target that you know is achievable, okay? And then set a stretch, okay? So we plan to the stretch, as in what things do we need to change, but we aim for we measure our success by the achievable goal. Because that combination allows you to keep thinking ahead of yourself. And when you achieve that stretch, it's just the most amazing feeling. But you want to make sure that you're not setting something that is too hard. So you've got to have that combination. And one of the other things I want you to do in this month is actually sit down and understand cause and effect. Okay, so pick up the key tasks that make up your month end and do a typical wishbone cause and effect diagram. So work out, like, what stops you from hitting your stretch target. If we said tomorrow you had to hit your stretch, what are all the things that stop you from getting there by task? Yep. So pick out all the different elements of that month and timeline and checklist that you put together and go, right, what stops us? What stops us from doing our rev rec? Like, what could do that? Why do we wait till the third, the third, the fifth, the 11th day of the month to do accruals? What can we get that information out? So just pull everything apart and understand the causes that sit behind it, right? Try not to get into brainstorming until you've gone through all of the causes, because once you've got a more holistic view of what is slowing down your month end, you might find some patterns, right? And again, we've talked a lot about this over the last few sessions, but if you can find one common thread that unites everything and pull it out and fix it, then you impact lots of different things. And we're really starting to work on that 1%. So understand the causes that sit behind each, why can't you hit your stretch target now? And then make sure you've got all of them documented, all of the things you're struggling with. And then let's move on to the next month, which is brainstorming solutions. Okay, so I do have a few tips here. So pick out each element of the cause and effects, and just think in a couple of different ways. So, like understand the problems, but also don't just think about how I can do what I'm doing at the moment faster. Think about how I can also do it earlier. So I've had this before. So I've gone into systems and they're like, yeah, we've got to wait for every single supplier invoice to be in before we shut the ledger. And if you've worked in different environments, there may be instances where that's appropriate, but also it becomes about actually, no, we're just going to accrue. We're going to make sure we've got better visibility of what is coming in, and then we're going to accrue, close that off, and move forwards, right? So think faster. So how can I do the process faster? How can I get stuff in faster? But also think earlier. How can I start this process earlier? And we see a lot of customers, particularly around bank recs, shifting to daily or weekly bank recs versus waiting to the end of the month. That's an easy, fairly easy fix. And when you're doing this brainstorming of solutions, there's a couple of things you really need to think about. So firstly, include the entire team. Yeah, there is a temptation to bring to keep this to a very small and close-knit group. And absolutely, you can have your power team that are really dedicated, but you will be surprised, especially if you've got a wide and varied team, which you should be aiming for, a diverse team from lots of different backgrounds, lots of different kinds of organizations. They will have experience of one part of the puzzle working really well at a previous organization. Now, that could be a process they followed, a decision they made, a way they changed something, a tool they used. So just pick brainstorming solutions with the wider team is not only a great way to get ideas, because they will all have had different experiences in different organizations, but you can kind of create a buzz for the change that you're going to do. So when you start to roll out ideas, giving credit to that individual for the idea that they've created, whether they're a junior, a more senior, or like an executive level staff, that has an amazing impact. And I also want you to think about, are there elements of this brainstorming piece that should be done with the wider organization? So should we be sitting down with sales and going, right, how can we make the invoicing process slicker? Getting your CRM team involved. So just think wider in terms of your team and who you get involved, and use that to create energy and enthusiasm, making sure you're rewarding the ideas that you end up implementing and recognizing that individual, but also thinking wider in terms of the organization and the teams that you get involved. My one shout on brainstorming is there are some really great techniques you can use to avoid groupthink. And I've talked a lot about this on the podcast, but one of the basic techniques is, rather than just getting everyone to go, to shout out ideas, etc., try and do rounds of ideas. So get everyone to put their thoughts on a piece of paper, make it as on a post-it note, stick it in a jar, and then read them out. Try to make it as anonymous as possible so that people aren't scared to put stuff down. So you're trying to avoid everyone sort of going up, going, no, that wouldn't work, because it's just that they haven't thought about it, right? So try and avoid groupthink, as in people getting behind the same mindset. You want to make sure you're challenging the current status quo, because the current status quo isn't working for you. Otherwise, you would not be listening to this podcast, or you would not be having the conversations that you would have. Another good tip is, do use your consultants and advisors. I love it when our customers reach out to our account managers. We sit down with them, we go, right, what are some of your ambitions for the next 12 to 18 months? they go, we really need to streamline our month end, and we can help and support them through. But that you will have access to technical advisors and and consultants. Pick their brains, come to, the stuff that you can't think of, come to them and ask the questions. And not just your technical consultants, but think about other consultants you're using that may be working across companies either in a similar industry or even in a completely different industry. And just think about, what they do differently. And again, I see that's one of the value of us as consultants and advisors to our customers, is actually sharing things that we've seen that are working for others. Because I don't see ourselves, my job is not to be the oracle of knowledge. My job, as certainly how I see it, is to share the knowledge that I've gained by being lucky enough to work with lots of different customers, and to share that across. And again, it's why I start this. Don't forget, and I say this a lot, don't forget to go out and see for the software that you're using, that, what do they demo? What do they talk about when they try and convince new customers to look at their software? Go in and have a look at that, because that's a really good source of inspiration. So if you've got a particular challenge, maybe around your purchasing process, go and look at how the software that you're currently using is being demonstrated to new potential users, and say, well, does that work for us? Is that how we are using it? Because that can also open up some really interesting conversations. And don't forget your community and network. So I like to think of us as an example of a great community and network, but reach out to, people that you're connected on LinkedIn, reach out to people, peer networks that you get part of. And if you're not involved in any, get involved. Share the knowledge, because you will probably be doing something that is good, that other people can learn from. And it's about, and I'm sure that other people are doing things that you can learn from as well. So, okay, so brainstorming solutions. So now, hopefully at the end of this month, you've done a few sessions with different people, with the wider group. You've got loads of ideas, and then you need to prioritize and decide which ideas you're going to implement and when. So prioritization, think about, obviously impact, how big each idea is in terms of impact. How much change is it going to make? How much is it going to impact your close? Think about time to implement. So how quickly can we implement this? Is this a 6-12 month project? Can we get something started in the next 6 weeks? Think about the cost. Obviously, cost has to be a factor. Can we do anything? Is there, what's this going to cost us? Is the ROI there? Because that is an important question. And I always say, focus on low hanging fruit. So if there's a couple of small things you can do, get those out of the way first, and get those moving. I also say, try not to overload one person in the team, right? Because, it's really tempting, unless you're going to take that person out of the day-to-day and find ways to give them, dedicated time, and they can be your internal, finance systems consultant, which have seen work really well, actually. Unless you are going to actually give them capacity and take stuff off of them so that they have more time, then you need to be realistic about what you're asking that individual to do. So, spread the load, but also don't feel like it has to be something that is in somebody's day job. Obviously, there's a vested interest. It's in your day job. You know it well. But think about the skills that you have as a team. Maybe someone's an absolute whiz kid at ODBC or Excel reporting and VLOOKUP, so can help somebody in a different team with improving their reporting. Now, I know a lot of you are sitting there saying, oh my God, Hannah is encouraging the use of spreadsheets. No, I'm encouraging the use of more automated reporting. I fully expect anyone that knows me will say that you should be getting out of spreadsheets as the end goal, but there's always a step forwards, right? So how do we make this as good as possible? And again, utilizing the skill sets. I've seen some absolute wizards, right? I don't agree that sometimes creating beasts of Excel spreadsheets is the way to go, but there's a big difference between creating unmanageable, unwieldy beasts of spreadsheets versus automating a few things to create capacity to drive a better change. And that's kind of where the balance is. And finding that balance is always hard. And then implement. So for the next 3 months, I want you to really focus on implementation. So that could be, implementing a new finance system. It could be redesigning your chart of accounts. It could be improving integration. And again, we've got loads of advice on all of these things. Common examples I have see like small wins, if you want small wins. So like absolutely getting your TB directly into Excel, so you don't have to keep exporting, copying and pasting and doing all that kind of stuff, is one I've seen. Bank feeds and reconciliation rules. I literally had a conversation with a customer last week, I think it was, where they didn't know that their current system had bank feeds, and we talked through it, sent them the link, they got it, and they're going to look at that. OCR can be a fairly quick win, but just make sure you've got the right OCR solution and it's got the right integration capabilities. Do a reporting assessment. So looking at your reporting, is your chart of accounts set up to maximize your use? That can be a tricky one because there then becomes a migration conversation. So but it's well worth thinking about whether that's something you need to do. Is it your system or is it your chart of accounts? There's, sometimes there's a bit of a gray area there. Approval-based systems. So as you're looking at things like OCR, can you implement some controls? Just implementing purchase orders can have a massive impact. You get your accruals. So you've got a list, obviously, of what should be coming in terms of invoicing. So there's huge amounts of like little technology pieces you can look at, process changes you can make. But the one thing I would say is that avoiding errors in the first place is key. So if you can avoid errors and issues and having to take time to reconcile things, you will save your team a massive amount of time, because it takes longer to find where things have gone wrong than it does to prevent it in the first place. So thinking about everything you do with that kind of like, how do we avoid the errors in the first place? Understanding how much time you're spending on reconciliations and checks and balances each month is well worth looking at as well. So build yourself a 3-month plan, have some real focus attention, implement lots of changes over the next 3 months, and then assess where you're at. So by this time, whether you're doing this in weeks or months, you will be well through a month-end improvement program, right? So it's always important that you kind of got a last push. So just assess where you're at, recognize any great changes or improvements, celebrate success, reward, with a recognition those that have generated ideas and implemented the ideas that you've generated. And then also just go at it one more time. So one big push, let's see where we get to and get that in. And then, okay, you're at the end of it. So always really interesting. And I think we're so focused on like the next improvement, particularly, as consultants in what we do, we don't always take the time to step back. So pull out that original month-end checklist that you've been using for the last 12 months. Take that first month-end checklist, compare it to where you're at now and go, right, what are the improvements? Where did we improve? Analyze consistency across each month. So look, we talked about counting the numbers of earlies, lates and on times. Yeah. Have you improved not just the time to close, but the consistency of the close? Are there still some areas you really need to get hold of? Call out, we talked about recognizing those that generated the ideas, those that implemented it, but also recognize skill improvement, because as you've gone through this, people will have built skills. They will have learned something new. And I think recognizing people and recognizing individuals for how they have developed because they took part in the change kind of will drive your next wave of change. Okay. So, this is a great way to kind of build momentum for the next journey that you're going to go on, because it doesn't stop, right? You should be continually assessing and improving your month end. We're just looking at it with a 12-month plan. So month 1, implement your checklist. Month 2, implement your post and pre and post close review meetings. 3, find your golden egg. Find something, reasonably small and achievable in a month, but can actually have a good impact on what you're doing. Something that you keep saying you're going to do and just never get around to for whatever reason. Just do it. Just get everyone around that, focused around that item. Month 4, set your goals. So set your initial goal and your stretch goal, and understand the causes and challenges and things that make it up, the reason you can't deliver on that now. Brainstorm solutions, get the wider team involved, get the wider organization involved, and make sure that you're brainstorming in an effective way that doesn't just reward the loudest voice in the room. And then prioritize and plan out your changes the next 3 months. Make sure you're utilizing the skills across your wider team, bringing the team together to get this in. Go implement your improvements. Month 11, take a little stop and check on where we're at. One final push, maybe one more thing you're going to change before you go, and then celebrate success, measure success, and look at what your next 12 months will look like. Okay, so I've actually got a bit of an ask of everybody listening to this podcast on demand or attending live. I really hope you are enjoying and finding these sessions valuable. And actually, the feedback we've had is amazing, but I want to make it better. So I'm going to put a link in the show notes for the podcast and in the chat for the live. But I would really love to have feedback from you all about how you're finding these sessions. So there's a couple of things I want to know. Is one, are the topics relevant? Are there any particular topics you would like us to cover that we haven't, or any topics you felt like we went into but we didn't dig in enough? So please do give us some ideas and thoughts on topics. Are there any topics you liked, but again, you feel like you want to spend more time on? I also want to think about how we consume this content. So I know it's hard for people to find the time to attend live. Would you prefer to consume it on LinkedIn, as some people are now? The podcast, is that the best format? So we design it around either a video or a podcast, or perhaps we want to look at webinars, so you can actually be in a more enclosed group. You can ask questions, and we can have like FAQs at the end that we can maybe not put on the live event, depending on what you want to do. So I would really love your feedback on topics, on format, on the length of time. So I'm just trying something different today, and I'm trying to keep it under 40 minutes because as you guys know, I can talk forever about transformation and change and technology. So I'm trying something a little bit different this time. So we'll see how this timing works with the format. And then last but not least, if you do want to attend their lives, when would you like it to be held? Like traditionally, we've kind of done it in the mornings or at lunchtime. Does that work for most people? Do people want to be able to join it of an evening? Do you want a late session at 5 o'clock or something like that, or later? I'm open because I really want to get more in, I'd love to get people engaging in the conversation and sharing more about what they are finding that's working, challenges they have had. So I'm really open to evaluating how we do this, because it is a free event. It is about building this community of change agents, of people in finance transformation, and supporting everybody across the board in a way that's community led. So that's what we're hoping to achieve. So we'd really appreciate your feedback. We'd really love to hear from you all on what you would like to see. I know if you want to be a silent listener, that's absolutely fine, but this is a really anonymous way to help us out. So if you've enjoyed this session or previous sessions, I'd really love to hear from you about what we could do better, and what we could do differently, or what you love. Feel free to add in some comments around that as well. So if you are really looking to do more with your month end, so a couple of pieces of content, I'm going to start from the right and work my way to the left, just for a bit of a change. I've quoted a few numbers, but there was a brilliant survey, Close the Book survey, about in 2022, it was end of 2022, I think it was published, about what people said about the close. So would really encourage you to download that and understand. It was produced by Sage, and they did a global assessment of it's called the Close Your Books campaign. So they did an assessment and spoke to loads of people in finance about how, and looked at different sizes of organizations. Again, it's why it's so interesting to me personally, is how do we get that skill and that scalability and automation that sits in big organizations and bring it down to the mid and small market. Just an example spreadsheet, I'm sure you have this, but for those of you that don't, I've just created a template for my month-end checklist. It is a revised version for those of you who've downloaded the previous one, and I'm sure in a few months I will probably update it because it's always changing and moving. As I work with different organizations, I use what I've learned and apply that to the next organization that I work with. So that latest updated one is available if you want to download it. It's a very simple template, but again, it's just a starting point. And if you know that actually one of the things you need to do is evaluate a new system, one of the things I'd like you to consider is the concept of a continuous close. And that's one of the things we're really trying to drive and help people to move towards with our continuous close. And Sage Intact is, I didn't realize it was possible to shift to a continuous close till I started working with Sage Intact, which is why I get so excited about it. So if you are in the market and assessing systems, or if you're just a little bit nosy and want to understand how technology can help you achieve that continuous close, then please do check out the webinar. And we're going to be doing more on this kind of technology-led piece. But as always, I am planning on keeping these financial transformation lives and the podcast solution agnostic wherever possible, so that it is helping as many people as possible. So thank you so much for joining me. It's been an absolute pleasure, as always. I hope you have liked the slight change in timeframes and this has helped. But again, would love your feedback and thoughts. And I hope that somebody is sitting here listening to this in the sunshine as well, and which I think is it was amazing at the moment. So podcast listeners, please don't forget that all of those links that I've talked about are all available in the show notes for you to access. For those of you that are watching live, thank you. It's lovely to have you. Please do reach out if there's anything else I missed, anything I need to expand on. And I will see you next time. Don't forget, our next one's on designing your finance architecture. Please do join me for that. And I look forward to seeing you at the next Financial Transformation Live session.